What's good, family? I'm Nikisha Elise Williams, the host of Black and Published podcast, and the author of the novel, The Seven Daughters of Dupree. This historical fiction novel is about the secrets kept between mothers and daughters over the course of 7 generations, and is told backwards in time from 1995 to 1860. The Seven Daughters of Dupree was published January 27, 2026, and is available everywhere books are sold. So if you can, please consider getting a copy of The Seven Daughters of Dupree today.
I am that 46-year-old, 6-year-old who's learning how to do new things and having fun with it, but it's also like, oh, do I even know what I'm doing?
What's good? I'm Nikisha Elise Williams, and this is Black and Published on the Mahogany Books Podcast Network, bringing you the journeys of writers, poets, playwrights, and storytellers of all kinds. Today's guest is Damon Young, author and editor of That's How They Get You, an unruly anthology of Black American humor. The anthology features essays and stories from 24 acclaimed Black writers whose words do work on the page, but are also funny AF.
You're known as this voice for a particular type of Black humor, right? And so why not make yourself the tastemaker also and a kingmaker for that by compiling this anthology, and you will be the person who is dictating, okay, this is what Black American humor is, or this was what Black American humor can be.
Damon has been using levity to look at curt conversations since his days as a dating and relationship blogger on Very Smart Brothers. The reason he says humor is a vehicle to explore human vulnerabilities, such as shame. Plus, the reason he believes Black American humor is the best humor. And as he continues to explore the limitlessness of humor, the reason Damon's got sex on his mind for his future projects. That and more is next when Black and Published continues. And just in case you couldn't tell by my intro, FYI, this episode is not safe for children or work. Put them headphones on. You've been warned. All right, so first question. When did you know that you were a writer?
I'd probably stretch back to maybe 6th or 7th grade when I would get these take-home essays in English class, and my dad is a tremendous writer. He would help me write the essays. So he would give me advice on how to season, the paper with adjectives, adverbs, colorful nouns, and just all the forms of language that you could possibly incorporate into an essay like that. And I would get A's. No, he would get the A's, right? But, I've always been more of an introvert, and that was, I guess, my first time recognizing how the written word, could be a way for me to articulate all the things that I wasn't as comfortable as saying out loud. It was a way of me gaining power, was a form of catharsis, was a form of fun. I liked writing. I liked the things that I had written being read, and I recognized that at an early age. And so basketball is my first love. So I was a hooper. I played basketball in high school. I went to college on the basketball scholarship, all of that. And then once I got to college and kind of recognized that my aspirations of playing professionally weren't very realistic, I just put more effort and energy into writing. I was in college in the late 90s, early aughts, and if you remember that time, spoken word poetry was like a zeitgeist driving force. You had like Love Jones, and you had Def Poetry Jam. You had people like Saul Williams, Jessica Care Moore, and Ursula Rucker, who I won't say they were household names, but they were names among like the niggas who read the sort of crowd, right? And so I got my first start writing poetry for the same reason, most cishet Black men or whatever, cishet men in general, right? Poetry is to impress women, right? And there was a girl on campus who I liked, and I didn't actually write the poem. I went to the original hip hop lyrics archive, and I found some obscure rap lyrics. And I cut and pasted them and sent them to her as a poem that I'd written for her. And it's funny because it wasn't even like it was fucking Wu-Tang. It was Method Man. It wasn't like some obscure sound bombing underground. I just took some Method Man lyrics, verse from Sweet Love, and sent it to her. Right
you
now,
tell this story in your memoir, because I'm not gonna sit here and act like I don't know who you are, and I haven't been reading your bylines since like the early aughts. So,
for the people who this is their first time hearing me or hearing of me, I just wanted to share that story because it's a part of the lore, right? And I can't talk about my journey to become a writer or being who I am today without mentioning that, yeah, I got my start plagiarizing.
I want to go back to what you said about writing being a place where you could feel your power or be empowered. Can you say more about what that discovery was like and what that did for you?
I mean, I can't overstate how introverted I was and still am in many regards. And so learning that, oh, I can articulate all these things on a page and I can also take my time. If this word doesn't fit or if I'm trying to say a thing out loud and the word doesn't necessarily come to me, it comes to me a bit quicker when I'm writing. And it gave me, I don't know, like you watch like superhero movies, Superman or whatever when he first discovers that he could shoot laser beams out of his eyes. My words aren't shooting laser beams or whatever, maybe metaphorical laser beams, but it was a similar discovery for me where it's like, oh shit, I can do this. And I love that I'm able to do this. And I love how the spectrum of articulation widened when I had that discovery about myself. It's like, oh, there are so many different ways that I can articulate, so many different ways that I can express myself, so many different ways that I can give people space to understand what's happening in my head, right? And also invent things, also create things, also conjure things out of the ether. And so, again, for me, it was just having that and nurturing and developing that has been, and it's not necessarily a superpower, but well, maybe it is. Yeah, sure. I'll call it that.
Did you always lean into humor in your writing, or was that something that you developed over time?
That's always been a part of the way I exist in the world. Now, I've enhanced how to be funny on the page and different ways to do that. I teach humor workshops now. So even with the teaching it, when you teach it, you have to learn how to teach it, even if you can do it. And that's obviously a completely separate dynamic. And so with teaching it, I look at some of my own work and I look at other humorists and I'm like, oh, okay, so there are some similarities, there's some structural, some architectural things that are in common here, right? Along with like some of the larger conversations, let's say the difference between, I don't know, satire and parody, or for instance, something like that. But then you have like nuts and bolts things that are craft related about humor and about rhythm, and also how humor is like a deeply vulnerable act that we don't necessarily associate with vulnerability, right? But if you just think like, if you're on a first date and you tell a joke or you say something that's meant to insert some levity, meant to be funny, and the person doesn't get it or it goes over their head, like date's over. Right. I don't care how much I like you, how much I'm attracted to you. Right. Yeah, we're not going to mesh. I tended to be vulnerable. Our vulnerabilities are not compatible. And so, imagine that feeling, right? That feeling of opening yourself up in that way and it not being responded to in a way that you anticipated. I just don't think that we think of humor with the radical vulnerability that's necessary to try to be funny. And so that part, the vulnerability part, is something that I feel like my writing, particularly over like the last 5 to 10 years, has shifted into a bit more. And I just feel like the vulnerability and the humor in the examination of all my self-consciousnesses and neuroses and anxieties, I think those things just go hand in hand.
The humor is the tool to get at the deeper truth.
Yeah.
So then we talked a little bit about dating, and before what doesn't kill you makes you blacker, and that's how they get you. You and your co-conspirators came out with a dating manual. Yeah, I've been reading a long time. You are not a stranger.
Yeah.
Don't sign like that. I want the lore, but also the facts of the iteration of Very Smart Brothers and that dating manual that you all did.
Okay, so BSB, we founded it in 2008, and it was myself, it was Panama Jackson, and it was Liz Burr, who was like our third kind of like silent partner. And it was Panama and I just taking turns each week, and we would write tongue-in-cheek dating and relationship advice, right? Now, again, it didn't exist in a vacuum. By like 2007, 2008, there was a lot of dating and relationship advice out there. Steve Harvey had his famous book, right? Fucking Hill Harper had a book. Vanessa Mitchell from Saturday
Hill
Night Live
Harper
had a
did
had a
have a
book.
book.
Yeah, it's called The Conversation, right? And so there was all of this stuff existing out there. And so we thought, let's start our blog. And yeah, so for our first like year and a half, 2 years, our focus was on just really tongue-in-cheek, really silly, but we felt, somewhat progressive dating, relationship, and sex advice, where it wasn't, much of the advice that existed outside of us was more like, okay, women, here's why you're single. Here's the things you need to do. Think like a chicken, act like a pig, whatever the fuck. And we kind of veered away from that. And so after a couple of years of that, we compiled some of our blog entries, our more popular ones, or the ones we felt the best about. And we made a book called Your Degrees Won't Keep You Warm at Night, The Very Smart Brothers Guide to Dating, Mating, and Fighting Crime. That book is still available. It's on Amazon. The self-published book. It's still available if you want to read that. I don't know if I recommend that you do, but if you want to, it is there. It is out there in the universe right now. And I think that book was published in early 2011, and we had a big party in DC to celebrate. It was also the 3-year anniversary of Very Smart Brothers. So a lot of the people who frequented the blog and were fans of the blog also met in person for the first time. And it was also the first time Panama and I met in person. After having the blog for 3 years and knowing each other at that point for about 6 or 7 years, that was the first time that we actually met in person.
And so, in doing that blog, I'm assuming you know now how much you shifted the culture in retrospect. But at the time where you were blogging and self publishing your book and just carving out your space and working on your craft, was there ever a strategic thought in your mind that this is something that can take me further than I ever imagined?
Yes. It definitely was. It definitely was. I had aspiration of writing full time. Now, I will say that the career that I've had has vastly surpassed the aspirations that I had, right? I just wanted to be able to make a living writing columns, writing essays, whatever. I didn't even think about book deals and things of that nature. And then, so while I was doing all this at VSB, I had a job at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh. I was a manager at a college prep program there. And then I got laid off in 2009. The whole program was shutting down, was a casualty of the recession. And so I was like, well, you want to be a writer? You want to write full time? You have this opportunity because of the recession to be on long-term unemployment. So why not try to do that? Why not try to build up your blog? Why not try to enhance your craft and see if you could actually make a living doing this thing? And so even with like a dating and relationship and sex sort of focus was somewhat mercenary because we knew that, okay, this is a way to get readers immediately. So this is the way to get traffic immediately, a way to get engagement immediately. And once we had that, then the blog shifted into more of what VSB was known for, right? More cultural commentary, more observational humor, more just snapshots of existing while Black and the wide spectrum that, existing while Black provides you instead of being somewhat narrow with the focus. And so, things worked out. My first regular paying gig was actually an advice column at Madame Noir, right? I got like $50 a week or $100 a week to do that. And then in late 2011, I got a job at Ebony Magazine. And then things just kind of continued to snowball from there. The blog continued to grow. And then I got a gig at GQ. And then I was doing stuff for The Root. And then by 2016, I ended up getting a multi-book deal. And then 2017, we sold Very Smart Brothers to Univision, which at that time owned the Gawker, the Gizmodo Media, blogs or whatever. And we became a part of that network of sites. And so all of that happened pretty quickly. I started a blog in 2008, and by 2017, book deal, also sold a blog. So I guess it wasn't that quick. I guess that's like 8 or 9 years, right?
It's 9 years of work, but I mean, when the work is consistent, I think it does feel a lot faster
Hmm.
because you're in it. You don't have time to step away from it. Fun fact, one of my very first freelance pieces when I left television was for Very Smart Brothers about being Black in the newsroom.
Okay, what was this?
2019.
Oh, okay. Well, great.
Thank you. I appreciate the check. Part of my own little lore. Another story, another day. But You talk about this multi-book deal. You did your memoir, "What Doesn't Kill You Make You Blacker." Did you know that you always wanted to follow it up with an anthology, or were you just searching for something?
The anthology wasn't my idea, that's my agent's. In the anthology, the idea was to okay, so What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Blacker came out in 2019. It was part of a multi-book deal, two books of essays. The next book of essays is tentatively titled The Rage of New Money. And so the idea was to have this anthology as something that existed like a quick palate cleanser
Mm.
that wouldn't take long to publish, wouldn't take long to curate, whatever, that existed between the books of essays. And now, 6 years later, that quick, easy little anthology is finally published. Right? Things got in the way, life got in the way, pandemics got in the way, so many other things that made this journey a bit longer than I anticipated. But Tanya was like, well, you're known as this voice for a particular type of Black humor, right? And so why not make yourself the tastemaker also and a
Mm.
kingmaker for that by compiling this anthology? And you will be the person who is dictating, okay, this is what Black American humor is, or this was what Black American humor can be. And so I thought it was a good idea, but I'm not going to take credit for the idea. It wasn't mine at all. This was my agent's. Yeah.
And warming to the idea and finally executing it, how did you decide what voices as the kingmaker that you wanted to include in the anthology?
There were some people who I immediately had in mind when this idea to do an anthology actually took shape, and other people that were suggested to me. There are 24 contributors in it. I probably reached out to maybe 40 or 45 different people altogether. Some people were like, yes, boom, I want to do this, submitted something. Some people were like, yes, boom, I want to do it. Never submitted anything. Some people, hey, this is great idea. I just don't have the time or the bandwidth to do it. And then there were people who submitted things who I just maybe felt it wasn't necessarily the best fit. It was things that were very well written, but existed outside of what I had in mind for this, or maybe duplicated something that already existed in the anthology. And in terms of who I reached out to and why I reached out to them, it was just I wanted tremendous writers first, and I wanted people who I believe are also very funny, right? And I've been asked before about the roster and heard comments like, well, you don't necessarily think of humor when you think of Kesse Lehman or someone like that. And my response is always, you haven't read Kesse if that's your takeaway from
If
this
you
work.
read Long
That
Division and don't laugh, then
yeah.
something's
Even
wrong with
even
you.
even heavy. There's even funny shit in heavy, right? And so it's like, okay, well, are you actually reading these people or are you just doing like forensic examinations for, I don't know, evidence of Black trauma,
Mm.
right? And the people that are in it, I'm just so grateful that these 24 generous geniuses decided to trust me with their work, with their thoughts, with their vulnerabilities, and I will for always be grateful for that.
And curating the anthology and really working in like an editorial role there and talking about how you were looking at pieces that complemented each other but weren't too similar. What themes were you going for in putting it together and ordering everything?
The anchoring theme is that Black American humor is the best American humor. And that's the best American humor because we have to be, the best humor comes from a collision, a fusion of a bunch of different factors. Honesty is one of them, and who's more honest about America, who has to be more honest about what America is, what America has been, who America says it wants to be, than Black Americans. But then also, I think it's a vast misnomer that humor comes from that you need trauma in place for humor. You need some sort of tragedy. That's not true, but you do need conflict. You do need some sort of conflict, even if it's something like a conflicting sensibility, a conflicting expectation of etiquette, a conflicting behavior. Something has to be in conflict for humor to arise, right? And so just thinking of those two things, that we are the best at this, in my opinion, and that the conflict, that's just a regular happenstance of life and necessitates the humor. I wanted this anthology just to show the limitlessness of Black virtuosity and how it being an anthology that is exclusively Black people actually makes the spectrum of possibility wider. I think that Black actually speaks to the ceilinglessness nature of this book and of the sort of places that only Black Americans can go with the humor, with the construction, with our language, right? There's language that we can use that no one else can use, right? And I take full advantage. There's one word in particular that I take full advantage of,
Well aware.
that we have exclusive providence too. And it's like, well, I consider it to be a privilege. And I take full advantage of that privilege.
And talking about the expansiveness of Blackness and how couching a genre of literature in that Black American experience specifically allows it to be abundant. In the 3 essays that you have, was there something that you were trying to show the reader about what abundance could look like for them?
Hmm. Maybe not necessarily abundance, but I think the original essays I wrote for this anthology are more articulations of the limitlessness of the spectrum of Black humor. Like the first essay talks about how my relationship with humor, with Black American humor specifically, starts off talking about a friend of mine who was the funniest person I ever met. And it wasn't until a little bit later in life that I made a connection between having that deep comedic bag and also being extremely intelligent, essentially being a genius. It wasn't a connection that was intuitive to me when I was 13 or 14. But, as I got older, it's like, oh shit, this motherfucker's a genius too. And there's another essay that is a take on, the Captain Ass Nigga, which I had a lot of fun writing. It was just an idea that I had and ran with it and I wanted to see where I could go with it. But I think, the essay that I guess really articulates or synopsizes my feelings about this anthology and about humor in general. It's an essay about my teeth, and it's called "You Gonna Get These Teeth," and it's
No,
you
no,
know
don't explain it. We're going to go straight to the reading portion because I want you to read
okay.
that
Are we
essay.
going to read it?
Yes, you're going to read it.
Okay.
Because I felt dragged by my scalp. Like you knew my life, and I was like, I didn't need you in my own thoughts and experiences telling people my business.
Okay.
So we're going to go straight to the reading portion and you can take it away.
Okay. Okay. Sure.
That's How They Get You, an unruly anthology of Black American humor, is a collection of 24 stories and essays by some of the most acclaimed Black authors doing language today, including Roy Wood Jr., Mahogany L. Brown, Deisha Philyaw, and Damon himself. The pieces explore the genius of clapbacks and playing the dozens, the risks and rewards of doing what you love, and what it's like to be in a group chat with your parents, and the imposed shame of poverty. Here's Damon.
Before I begin, I'm going to let the readers know this essay is one sentence. There's no punctuation. And so I've read this out loud, and each time I feel like I'm getting a little bit better with the read and figuring out, because, punctuation exists because you need places to pause, you need places to breathe, you need places to swallow your saliva that's accumulating in your mouth while you're speaking. And with no punctuation, it's like, okay, where do I find the spaces to do all these things without running out of breath, without, reading so fast that people don't understand what I'm saying? So again, there's a performance aspect to this essay too, and we'll talk more about this after I read it. But all right, here it goes. You won't get these teeth. My teeth have always existed to me as both visual proof and a validating register of my self-consciousness. This shit was just in my head. I've been called beaver and bucktooth and chipmunk and more because my teeth are big, because they develop gaps, because my parents didn't have enough cash for braces. So each time I opened my mouth, it was a memoir, a convergence of mortifications, an orgy of shames, resting profound space in my brain. So I found reasons to keep my mouth closed in pictures, closed in conversation, closed unnaturally when an open mouth smile was expected. There's a popular meme with Anthony Mackie where he's making the face he's known for making. It's a face where his mouth looks closed by force, a face like he's holding in a secret, or a mouthful of Dr. Pepper, a face that a cat would make if they were capable of shame. But when I see it, I see a man who is also known for having a gap between his two front teeth and probably developed that face from years of being teased about his teeth as a kid. I know that face because that face was my face for years, for decades, for far too long. But then I got some money from a book deal and from selling my blog. It wasn't fuck you money or even nigga forget you money, but it was definitely excuse me money. And after I got my excuse me money, I bought an excuse me car, an excuse me house, some excuse me sneakers, and some excuse me Invisalign 2021. Even before they began to shift my teeth, they immediately improved my grill because of trays you place on your mouth create an illusion of straight teeth. So when you open your mouth, so when I left the house for the first time with my new mouth, I just had one thought in my head, and that's you gonna get these teeth. I was a talking ass, smiling ass motherfucker, smiling at baristas, smiling at squirrels, smiling at my reflection in shallow puddles, taking selfies for the first time with the camera up in my face, shameless smiles everywhere, because you gonna get these teeth, smiling to myself in the street. When I thought about that time with that girl at that place during that time, way back when, this popped in my head. I mean, you know how these sorts of random microbursts of energy and cognizance and nostalgia are specifically engineered to induce a smile when they seep back into your consciousness, regardless of where you happen to be. But for me, this type of experience was laced with a trauma, like catching myself smiling by myself one time when I was on campus at Canisius. And one of my teammates said that if he were me, he'd never smile. And I shot right back at him and said, "You look like a 6 foot seahorse, you bitch ass nigga." But shit like this happened to me enough for me to be smile shy in public. So you gonna get these teeth to make up for all those pictures I take with friends and family and lovers, where I'd be so happy, but would look like I just experienced a colonoscopy prep. Not the colonoscopy itself, no. Those are fun as fuck. A walk in the park, a scoop of ice cream, a welcome tickle. But the prep makes you consume 17,000 liters of laxative over a 17-hour span. And shit so much and so violently that you dry hoop from your booty hole, not your anus, no. When it's exploding from you like a levee just broken your booty, the place it bursts out from is a booty hole, motherfucker. So you're gonna get these teeth because I think I'm actually be handsome now. Not a 10 or even an 8 but maybe a 6.8 or a 7.2, which are dangerous earthquakes. People might die. I wouldn't dare call myself that before my new mouth. I knew I wasn't the worst looking man in the world, and that's how I would have described myself in a dating profile if I ever had one. But handsome was for different niggas, but niggas with wide smiles who kept eye contact with you when they looked at you instead of being like me and not keeping eye contact for too long because that would mean you were still looking at me. And I want you to stop before you had enough time to really peek and critique and deconstruct my grill. When my mom would say I was handsome, I'd tell her thank you then I think, nigga, why you lying? But now, if I had just one more phone call with her, I ask her to stay on dead for at least another hour because I'm coming up to see you and you're going to get these teeth to finally validate your acceptance. But back to the eye contact thing, it's funny and sad to think of all the traits and tics I developed from a lifetime commitment to opening my mouth as little as possible. I take Nexium once a day for the acid reflux that would fuck with me for 20 years. It's under control now in a way it wasn't when I would cause so much pain that I couldn't lie down and sleep unless I stood under a scalding shower for an hour to let the water splash on my chest. And maybe it's possible, maybe that the reflex may be developed after years of eating too quickly, not chewing to completion, gulping instead of swallowing, all the things I learned to do to open my mouth as little as possible. Actually, definitely. A lifetime of forced smirks and tight-lipped grimaces that exist instead of smiles, form lines in my face. Like how a couch cushion develops creases, like how a rock shifting the road after years of waves crashing into them, like how niggas who smile all the time, I've always smiled all the time, look like they're always smiling. So you're gonna get these teeth. Because I feel like I'm learning how to exist in a world again. I think some of my smiles now are overcorrections. On no more parties in LA, Kanye West called himself a 38-year-old, 8-year-old. And that's how I feel now when I smile sometimes. Like for real, there should be a class or something for niggas who just start smiling in public at 40 to teach us when and when not to smile in conversation. Exactly how many seconds you can hold a woman's gaze before a smile seems to flirt. How long you're allowed to smile while strolling down the street before niggas think you're a pedophile. It's strange now to be smiling back when people smile at me instead of racing through a cost benefit analysis of whether it's safe to show them my teeth, perhaps even my aversion. The small talk is less about pretending to be interested in y'all's thoughts on cloud formations and alternative milks and more about just not trusting people enough to be vulnerable enough to keep my mouth open around them unless I absolutely had to. I mean, I'm not all of a sudden Mr. Small Talk now. I don't need you to joke about how long the line is while we're both standing in it, because I mean we're both standing in it, and I already know. But when it happens now, instead of an anguished grin and a nod in your direction, the bare minimum of socially acceptable response, I'll say yes. This line does seem to be long, with a smile as wide as my patience is for you. And you're gonna get these teeth because I'm taking better care of them now. I mean, I never neglected them. I get checkups. I brush twice a day. I use mouthwash. I floss on holidays. But now the difference in care reminds me of the difference between how I treat my Dodge Charger and how I treat the Maserati I bought with my excuse me money. The Charger was taken care of, sure. Washes, oil changes, and all the shit you do to maximize the car's use. But the Maserati was getting detailed regularly and motherfucking massaging. If you could give a car a blowjob, I would have got one of them too. I hit a pothole once and I got a flat and I didn't have a spare. And there was a Pet Boys a block away, so I drove it to it and told one of the Pet Boys my predicament. And he looked at me like, nigga. And I looked at him like, what? And he finally said, nigga. This is Pep Boys. We don't work on Maseratis here. While I didn't actually say nigga, I could feel his inflection in my soul. But yeah, I don't have Pep Boys teeth anymore. When Invisalign, you have to wear the trays for 20 hours a day and can't eat or drink colorful or hot liquids with them, man. And each time you have to put the trays back in after eating, you have to brush and floss first. So I'm brushing and flossing like a madman, like a motherfucker, like a Maserati now. My teeth are shiny. These bitches are sparkly. So you're going to get these teeth. I can't help but think, though, that since teeth in America have this inexorable relationship with class, and since I allowed myself to feel deep shame for not having money, and since I've had excuse me money since 2016, maybe this new feeling is less about my new teeth and more of a new money learning curve where the shame slowly withered and made me more depleted of fucks about how he felt about my mouth. I mean, I suspect it's a bit of both. I get fewer fucks, sure, and my divestment of fucks to connect to my wallet. And I think maybe the new teeth are a bank statement, a long receipt, a billboard of fuck that says stupid people say that money changes you. Smart people say that money changes how people treat you. And whether you change or not is assessed through that lens. And maybe, though, that withing of shame is conspicuous, contagious, and niggas ain't responding different than me because of my mouth or my money, but because the odor that shame emits is gone and niggas smell sweet now, so you gonna get these teeth.
Thank you.
There we go.
So I have my
Yeah.
Invisalign in now
Oh, okay, okay.
that I bought with my excuse me money after I bought the excuse me card.
They look great. They look great. Yeah, I am not wearing my retain well, I wear retainers at night on the tops and the bottoms. I actually had to get a set of braces too for the bottoms. And I
Mm.
had those for about 8 months. I got them taken off about 2 or 3 months ago. And so now I just wear retainers at nighttime when I sleep.
So these are the retainers. I haven't gotten to that. I just wear them at night
Okay.
part. I had braces in high school, ran over my retainer in college, and so my gap opened up in the at the top. But then I
Uh-huh.
had the permanent retainer on the bottom, so my bottom teeth were always fine. But with my excuse me money, I was like, I really want to close my gap. And so in February of this year, I started the trays. There was 16 weeks, and so now I'm in retainers all day until September, and then starting in September, it will just be at night. So I
Okay.
felt very red for Phil. I got to that part of your essay, I was like, Damon doesn't need to talk to me like this. Like, lower your voice.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being in your head. My bad. You didn't give me permission to be there, so my apologies.
No worries. But, and I assume this essay is indicative of what we may be able to expect from the rage of new money and
Yes. Yes.
how
Yes.
the neuroses and insecurities we have are perhaps more magnified when you now have the financial resources to do something about them. And so then you just start wilding or acting brand new or whatever people want to say about it. And putting that down and giving us a taste of that in this specific essay in this anthology, why was that experience an important entryway for you?
Teeth have been for me, and this is probably about the third or fourth essay I've written about teeth. I wrote something for the New York Times Modern Love series about my teeth also a couple years ago. And teeth are a Trojan horse to talk about shame,
Mm,
right? And the different shapes that shame takes, the different ways that shame affects us, the power that we give shame, right? I'm also preoccupied now with the effect that shame has on the body and how that it seems to mirror what addiction
mm.
does too. Like you mentioned having a gap that you felt a way about and you took measures to get it corrected. But I'm sure you know as well as I know people who have gaps and beautiful gaps who smile all the time and all up in your face and whatever. And it's like, so what is it about them and the way their brain works that makes them less self-conscious about this? Whereas with me, and I guess with you, it was something that was in our heads. Even though we're in the same country, we're receiving the same stimuli, mostly the same atmospheric things that affect us all. And so, why is it affecting this one person different than it's affecting the other person? And like with addiction, there's a doctor who was pretty popular a few years ago. He was on like 60 Minutes. He's a man, older black man. I think his name was Carl Hart. And he did a lot of work on the science of addiction. And he essentially was like, yo, I do heroin, I do coke, I do all of that. And
He was
I'm
in the
like high
crack
functioning.
documentary. I've
Yeah.
seen him because he was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I smoke crack every day," and we were like, "I was like, wait, what?"
Yeah. And he's like, I do it and I'm fine. I'm functioning, I'm whatever. And I'm paraphrasing, but I remember his take being, you just have to know how your brain works because there are some people who can't do this. who can't take crack, right? Who will do cocaine one time and be addicted immediately. And there's other people who could do it. And it's like, okay, well, sure, that was okay. And I don't, maybe I could do it again. Maybe I never do it again. Right. And so I feel like shame maybe has some of the same neural pathways.
Mm.
Um, and how, again, some people can experience the exact same, have the exact same stimuli, have the exact same experience and feel fine about things, whereas other people feel like the self-consciousness and the self-doubt and this insecurity about the exact same thing, right? And I think also we have to be careful with the concept of shame because I don't think it's good to be shameless. I think it's good to be shameless about things you can't control, but it's not good to be shameless about behavior. And our country is being run by people who are shameless about their behavior. They should experience all the shame, right? But shame about things that are just like genetic, that you can't control, or shame about a financial insecurity, a shame about your parents' economic situation when you're growing up. You have no control over those things, right? And that Teeth essay, again, it's a Trojan horse to talk about shame and to talk about my relationship with that and the work that I've done over the past several decades, really, to extract it. The work has been concentrated, I guess, in the last like 5 or 10 years, but this is something I've been trying to do my entire life. And one of the trickiest things about shame, too, is that the people who are experiencing it sometimes are the most loath to admit that they are experiencing it. And one of the things that prevented me from getting Invisalign wasn't just financial, it was spiritual. I almost felt like admitting that I wanted to fix my teeth was a way of admitting to the rest of the world that they're right about my teeth.
Mm.
And so I had to get past that part of it too. It's just a tricky and messy and chaotic, the things that shame can do to a person, to a person's brain. And much of my work, and so the next thing I'm doing now isn't actually the essay book. I'm writing my first novel right now, and it's a satirical take on the performance of race, on the publishing industry, on anti-racism, on sex. There's a lot of sex, so much sex in this book. I don't
There's a
think
lot
that's
of sex
cis.
in all your work.
Yeah, but I don't think that cis het black men write about sex enough.
Say more.
Unless it's related to trauma or comic relief, right? Queer black men write about sex. Not all of them, obviously, but write about sex much more frequently than the cis het black men do. Black women write about sex. White people love writing about sex, right? As a reader, can you name like a book that had a lot of sex in it or was about sex that was written by a cis het black man?
The only person coming to mind is Eric Jerome Dickey, and he's no longer with us.
You had to go back. I mean, think of all the black male writers today. You could probably name 20 or 30 or 40 right now. But in terms of, okay, name one who writes about a
Who
thing,
writes about sex? Yeah.
that we all think about, that we all talk about, that we all, well, a lot of us do, not all, not, some people don't for whatever reason. But you had to go back to someone who's not even with us
Mm-hmm.
anymore, right? I know more black men who write about bird watching than who write about more cishet black men who write about bird watching than who write about sex, right? And so this book has a lot of that in it, and I think that that's something that's related to the performance of race
Mm.
also. And so I'm having a lot of fun writing it and looking forward to people being able to actually read it.
Another one of the pieces that I loved in the book was, I think it's "Can a Bitch Have a Miscarriage in Peace?"
Yes.
That was a lot, but then it also goes to how Black women will compartmentalize so much that when they finally break down, it's in the most unexpected ways, and people don't know if we're serious.
Yes, so Hillary is a great friend of mine, right? And her essay, I'm reminded of okay, did you watch I May Destroy You?
I did.
Okay, Kayla Cole, genius writer, actor, screenwriter. And that limited series was autofic because it was based on an experience that she had gone through. And for people who hadn't seen that series, it deals with these very heavy themes of like consent and assault and memory, and I'm working through all of that. It's also extremely funny. And so she was being interviewed like a week or so after the finale aired. And one of the questions she was asked was, what makes you insert humor? in such serious subject matter. And her response was, I don't insert humor, I just don't remove it. And I was like, oh, okay, I love that. I'm going to steal it. I'm going to repeat it every time I get a chance to. I'll cite you, but I'm going to repeat this shit. And so Hillary's essay is, to me, another example of that, where, miscarriage, just a terrible, traumatic, harrowing experience that she went through while she's at work, still has to do her job, still had a young child and a husband who has his own shit going on, right? And she didn't insert any humor, but she just found the humor in the telling of the story and the articulation. And also, just how my teeth essay was a Trojan horse about shame, this essay was a Trojan horse about marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Because marriage is actually the center of this essay and her relationship with her husband. And in fact, after Hillary sent it to me, one, I had no idea that she had experienced this. Like, oh wow, this is great. This is really well written. This is really brave. Thank you for sharing this. Also, did you talk to your husband about this? Not to get his permission, but maybe a heads up that yeah, this is an essay about you all's relationship, right?
And
And
the expectations that are not voiced.
yeah, yeah. And so they had a conversation. They had multiple conversations
Did you
about
mediate?
the essay. I did not mediate. But she did share to me that they have talked about the essay multiple times and the themes that are brought up in the essay. But again, it's just a tremendously written and conceived and constructed essay. And I'm just really glad that Hillary trusted me with that subject matter and trusted herself to be able to tackle something so heavy in a funny manner.
Another one of my favorites is Roy Wood Jr.'s crowd work.
Yeah.
Specifically, like the very last few paragraphs where he's talking to the prostitute
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
parking lot about,
Hmm.
it's like some days I don't mind being a sex worker and I don't mind doing this and I don't mind doing that. But then, some days I got to give head to a dick that's got bumps on it. And the correlation of that, like, some days you don't mind what you're doing, and some days it's a little bumpy out here, and
Hmm.
how that
A little
relates
bumpy.
not.
Yeah.
It's a little rough out
Yeah.
here. And how that relates to so much of life, so much of the experience of writing, and then writing because you love it, and then writing because you want to get published,
Hmm.
and what pressures are there and expectations because you're doing the thing to live eventually when it becomes industry and work and career. And putting the collection, this anthology together, has it given you or bolstered any more of your confidence in that you can continue to do this forever beyond the initial goals that you had ever set, and even surpassing those?
The anthology, I'm glad that it exists. I think I've grown as an editor. The essays that are in it are essays that I'm proud of. I don't necessarily know, though, if this expands what I believe I'm capable of,
Why?
though, as a writer, because it's with What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Blacker. It's like, oh shit, this is such a like a vulnerable, such a deep examination of all these self-consciousnesses and anxieties, but it's also funny. And it's like, oh shit, I can do this. I can do this. I could do this. I could do this in 300 pages. I could do this. I could write a book like this. With the fiction I'm writing, when that, is done and it's published, like, oh shit, I could write fiction. I could tell a story. I could do satire. Like, I can do this, right? With this, it didn't necessarily prove anything to me. Like, oh yeah, these are skills that I know that I have. I know that I can trust my opinion of what's funny and what's not funny. This hasn't changed that. I trust my curatorial decisions in terms of who is in this book. I trust that. And so, yeah, I think I got better at things I was already good at with this, whereas with the other things, the other types of book that I've written and the other types of book that I'm writing right now, I am that 46-year-old, 6-year-old who's learning how to do new things and having fun with it. But it's also like, oh, do I even know what I'm doing? At no point during this did I doubt, like, oh, do I know what I'm doing? It was more of like, should I do this? This is taking a bit more time than I anticipated it. But at no point did I like, do I know what I'm doing? No, not with this.
As a fiction writer, I ask myself that question daily
Hmm.
with every book. Same question, never changes, never goes away. But that's another story, again, for another day. I want to switch to a speed round and a game before I let you go for the morning.
Okay.
What is your favorite book?
Ah, my favorite book. Damn. What doesn't kill you makes you blacker.
Who is your favorite author?
Toni Morrison.
Who is your favorite artist?
I have to be honest. Unfortunately, my favorite artist is still Kanye West. His art matters more to me than I think any other artist. And I have to be, even though I feel the way I feel about him as a person now, his art still reaches me in a way that no other artist I can say that. Well, I mean, other artists reach me, right? But again, yeah, that's my answer.
I'm not mad at that answer. As a Chicagoan, as a Kanye fan, I don't like having the Kanye conversation because of how much his art has mattered and how horrible he is presently and also off his meds. But that doesn't excuse his behavior. But again, I don't like having that conversation.
And if we consider athletes to be artists, and I think I do, then I would name Kyrie Irving and LeBron James too.
What do you think is the best book to movie or book to series adaptation?
But The Godfather.
If money were no object, where would you go? What would you do and where would you live?
I'm not a person that has like the travel bug. Like my answer would be I would just find a nicer place here in Pittsburgh. If money was no, well, you know what? If money was no object, I really like the DMV area. I've also grown to appreciate New York City. And if money, like if you lived in New York City, a New York City where money is no object, then that's a different life. That's a much, much different life. I don't know, however, if that life is conducive to raising a family. So that must be considered also. So yeah, I think I'd stay in a burg and I just, if money's no object, I have my jet. I can fly wherever I need to go.
Name three things on your bucket list.
National Book Award, watching my children become happy, successful citizens, people, happy, safe, successful people, having the space to continue to evolve and grow in my marriage also.
Hmm.
So yeah, those are th three things I want to do before I die.
What brings you joy?
So many things. Writing does, playing basketball still, talking about basketball, watching basketball, sharing like just funny meme and stories and quotes with my wife, watching my kids become people with like opinions and like personalities and jokes. I'm really appreciating that right now because they're at that age where they're like, oh, okay, this is your personality. This is who you are. Okay, I like this. And I don't like some of this. I like other parts of this, right? This is you. And so that part to me is great. I like shopping. That brings me a lot of joy. Clothes shopping brings me a lot of joy. Driving my car, I like to drive, brings me joy, particularly when I'm driving by myself and I could, listen to my music or a podcast and I'm just, going somewhere. Like those are my mini vacations that I take when I'm driving. When I'm driving to the mall. Right?
Listening to
Driving to the
music
mall.
or a podcast without your children interrupting you and asking you questions about it
Hmm.
is an underrated pleasure.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it so much.
Yeah.
What brings you peace?
I think that does. The peace and joy are kind of intertwined for me. The peace part could be like the driving part, or the sharing the funny stories with my wife part, or the going finding, a new place to eat. Or for me, more specifically, finding a place that I love to eat and going there over and over again. Because that's more me. I'm not the person who's always just trying to find like the newest best meal. It's like, okay, once I find things I like, I will eat the shit out of that thing over and over and over and over again.
Okay. So our game is called Rewriting the Classics. Classic is however you define it. Name one book you wished you would have written.
Killing Yourself to Live, Chuck Klosterman.
Name a book where you want to change the ending and how would you do it?
That's a tough one because the books that I love, the books that I remember, aren't necessarily books that I want to like change things. I feel like a lot of the books that I started reading and maybe didn't finish also are books where I would want to change things, but I didn't finish them.
You don't even know
So,
how they end.
yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. Final question for Rewriting the Classics. Name a book that you think is overrated or overtaught and why.
I won't say a book that is overrated, but I never was the biggest fan of Hemingway. Read a lot of him in high school and in college, which is never a huge fan.
And so, my final question for you today, when you are dead and gone and among the ancestors, what would you like someone to write about the legacy of words and work that you left behind?
This nigga made more space for niggas to be niggas.
I knew that word was gonna get me in there. Like I knew the sentence was gonna start with this nigga. Like I knew it in my spirit. Big thank you to Damon Young for being here today on Black and Published. You can follow Damon on the socials at Damon Young VSB on Instagram and Threads. And make sure you check out That's How They Get You, an unruly anthology of Black American humor. It's out now from Pantheon. You can get a copy of the book from Mahogany Books and get 10% off your first purchase using code BLACKPUB at checkout. That's BLKPUB. That's our show for the week. If you like this episode and want more Black and Published, head to our Instagram page. It's at Black and Published, and that's BLK and Published. There, I've posted a bonus clip from my interview with Damon about how famed comedian Roy Wood Jr. submitted his essay. Make sure you check it out and let me know what you think in the comments. I'll holler at y'all next week when our guest will be Danica Kelly, author of the poetry collection, The Natural Order of Things.
Poetry can help us imagine futures that don't feel possible. We can say things in poems that might not be true for us right now, but that we want to be true. That they can be a space where we are reaching into the future or calling toward a future that we want.
That's next week on Black and Published. I'll talk to you then. Peace.
What's going on, family? This is Derek Young
and Ramonda Young,
owners of both Mahogany Books and the Mahogany Books Podcast Network.
We really want to thank each and every one of you for listening to this episode. And if you enjoyed what you just heard, drop us a review and rate us on whatever platform you download podcasts on.
We truly appreciate each and every one of you for supporting us and making us your go-to for Black books. And we look forward to connecting with you all sometime in the future.
Thank you again, fam. And always remember, Black books matter.